Almost 18 months ago, the surrounding communities and the country on a whole were disturbed and disgusted at the reports of a pastor in Franks Eddy village who had been accused of having sex with an 11-year-old girl inside the village's church. It was an act that displayed much temerity on the part of the pastor and that shook the core of many of the villagers. But while the report involving a religious leader left many in disbelief, the act of unlawful carnal knowledge was not in the least taboo for the residents of Franks Eddy. As just last week, Love News brought you the story of two young girls who were sexually known by the same man who resides in Franks Eddy. According to the principal of the government school in that rural area, the incident with the little girl occurred about 2 years ago before her term as principal began. The 11-year-old was a Standard 3 student who had to leave school because she was impregnated by the man. Now, another family has been impacted by a similar incident, where the same young man has once again preyed on a 13-year-old Standard 5 student, who the family says has run away with the 25-year-old man. We visited Franks Eddy last week, and while we spoke to the principal, the child's sister and mother, who all confirmed that the child is involved with the man and that the child's stepfather, who is also the man's father, fueled the issue through the delivery of messages and gifts to the child, there is no solution or even a mere intervention by the authorities. According to the mother, when she found out, she evicted the man from her home. But the reports from the sister is contradictory, as she said that her mother was non-responsive to the issue and that she, the sister, was the one who had to go to the police station in Belmopan to make a report on the matter. That was when the authorities went to the village, according to the sister, but that the child and the man escaped through the back door and eluded the police. As I mentioned in part 1 of this segment, it is a lot of he says, she says. But what it does boil down to is that a crime has occurred, as the 13-year-old is not lawfully able to make a decision to cohabit or engage in sexual intercourse, as explained by former Minister of Human Development, Women and Children, and Attorney-at-Law Dolores Balderramos Garcia.
Carnal knowledge is, and it's called carnal knowledge because it is the taking advantage of a child in a sexual way. And rape, you could say, no? And we call it carnal knowledge because the issue of consent doesn't even arise. In other words, if you have a certain age and you're underage, then it is carnal knowledge. Now, a little bit older, when you reach, I think it's to 12, but don't quote me on the exact age. But after you reach, say, 12 or so, it's called unlawful carnal knowledge because it is still unlawful until you get to the age of 16 when you can consent to sexual activity and sexual intercourse. So it goes from very young carnal knowledge and then you go to unlawful carnal knowledge, but they're both illegal.
Now, in the matter of the intervention of authorities, earlier today I spoke to the officer in charge of the Domestic Violence Unit in Belmopan that deals with such issues. According to Sergeant Joseph, they had gotten reports of the child cohabiting with a man, and they had gone to look into the matter, but neither parties were located. She added that while the sister is saying that she did go to the station to make a police report on the matter, there are no records of such a report, and therefore there was not a case to investigate. She did say, however, that when she personally visited the village in the company of social services, they did speak to the mother, who was told that she was to take the child to the clinic for a physical examination. But that never happened, and therefore the proof of the crime is yet to be had. It is not an easy investigation, particularly when family members are not forthcoming with the authorities, thus making convictions difficult to attain in the courts.
We can have all the laws on the books and all the laws in the world, but the implementation of those laws needs the cooperation and the involvement of families and communities. Back in about 2001, when I was Minister of Human Development, we did pass the statutory instrument which makes the reporting of child abuse and neglect mandatory. So we did pass that. But if you make the reporting of child abuse and neglect mandatory, then to whom is it mandatory? It is mandatory to families, to mothers, to teachers, to religious people, to anybody who might be in a position of responsibility and trust. Last week, for example, I heard Carmen Barrow from Love FM very passionately saying that this is a situation that is so bad that we have to see more women, more men, more people of responsibility in the community standing up and saying enough is enough.
So, after all is said and done on this matter, where do we go as a society and as a country when it comes to strengthening the protection of our children? Will the politics be put aside to address the robbery of these children's innocence?
We had complete support from both sides of the House of Representatives when the recent law amending the criminal code was passed to increase the sentences for the sexual abuse of children. And even though there were some elements out there, I believe, trying to create a little bit of mischief, saying, oh, you know, you're going to be legalizing sodomy and blah, blah, blah. That wasn't so. And I think I was able to influence the support of my party, the opposition, to say that these laws are absolutely necessary. We actually listened to the president of the Bar Association. We listened to Attorney Audrey Matura. We listened to the DPP. I was very gratified at the input, especially of the DPP and the Bar Association. And I remember in particular the DPP, Ms. Sherilyn Vidal, saying that if there was one thing that she felt good that the committee of the House of Representatives were accepting was the great increase in the penalties for incest, to send a clear signal to men that it is unacceptable to be raping and taking advantage of our Belizean children. We are very much aware that this is an ongoing problem. But let me just point out, Renee, that there really is nothing ironclad. I think both parties in government have seen the need to strengthen the laws and have strengthened the laws in relation to trafficking in persons, the commercial sexual exploitation of children. I think that there has been a good continuity in terms of strengthening the laws. So I wouldn't want to make it partisan where that is concerned. But of course, I have to say that more needs to be done. And, you know, if you would allow me to put on the political hat just for a moment, I don't think that we are hearing enough of the advocacy right now. We're not hearing enough of the advocacy from the National Committee for Families and Children speaking out against domestic violence and doing the things that we need to see.
Franks Eddy Village has a population of just under 400 and is located off the George Price Highway through the road to Jaguar Paw. Reporting for Love News, I am Renee Trujillo.